So, Katie Bowater, you are a multi-hyphenate person. So, for those listening, who are you?
That's a really interesting question. So, my name is Katie. I'm a 22-year-old young entrepreneur. I've got a beauty business. I'm a property investor. I dabbled with a bit of property sourcing. I've now started to grow a community for other young entrepreneurs. I'm the co-director of a CIC, teaching kids financial education. I'm a daughter. I'm a sister. I love sewing. I love crochet. Yeah, I guess that's a little bit about me.
So, do you mind just reminding me, what are your ventures again? You said that you had 4.
Yeah, so currently I've got 4 things mainly on the go at the moment, which my first business I set, which when I was 18, was Beautification by Katie. So that is my beauty salon. At the age of 19, I invested in my first property, a buy-to-let property. By the age of 20, I set up Katie Bowater Limited and dabbled with a bit of property sourcing. And then last year, I became the co-director of a CIC called Inspiring Minds Group. And we teach kids the importance of financial education. We've run a 6-week programme in the city of Liverpool College that we're developing to hopefully kind of spread around wider across Liverpool. And then obviously Young Entrepreneurs Club, which I also set up last year. And that is a community for 18 to 35-year-old young business owners to come together, to connect, to collaborate, and if nothing else, just make friends. We host monthly social networking events in Liverpool, and we've just expanded to Manchester.
Very interesting. And there's a lot to unpack there. So I suppose the first question is, were you born an entrepreneur or were you made an entrepreneur?
I'd definitely say born. Since I was this big, I always knew I'd own a business. It was something I always said growing up. I'll always work for myself. I was one of them kids. By the age of 14, I was selling everything I could on eBay from around the house. I had to use my mum's eBay account because obviously I was too young for an eBay account. So yeah, I used to ask her, what can I have around the house? I ran out of things around the house, so I started knocking on at my dad's office, at his business, asking him what I could have. So yeah, I was definitely quite entrepreneurial from the start, and I always knew I'd own a business, but I did always think that would be something that would kind of come later on in life when, you know, you have life experience and all these things people tell you that you need.
Yeah, I see. So it was very much an innate thing. And I suppose that does reflect on, you know, what the saying is that entrepreneurs are born not made. Yeah, exactly. Well, I suppose many entrepreneurs need to just find themselves.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. I guess sometimes it's situational. You know, some people are, for example, made redundant or something major, something significant happens to them and it triggers them to think, oh, I want more from life, you know, or I'm worth more than this, and they kind of go down that route. But I do always think they had it in them from the start. It was just they didn't know their capability yet, in a sense.
So how do you think people could discover? I mean, this podcast is called Inspiring Youth Agency.
Yeah.
So I suppose what would you say to young people? What would your tidbit of knowledge, right? I'm a young person and I think I might be entrepreneurial. What should I do to maybe know that for sure?
I think you're definitely entrepreneurial, but I think if you've got characteristics like you don't mind taking a little bit of risk, or, you know, you want to, I don't know, you're always working hard, you're always grafting, you're always, I don't know, I think there's like a lot of characteristics that go into entrepreneurship. I think, you know, confidence in yourself, and things like that. And I think if you want more from life, if you know you can make a difference, and if you want to make a difference, then I think you'd make a good entrepreneur.
You make a good entrepreneur. Interesting. So what was your upbringing like?
Yeah, it was lovely. I'm so fortunate. Like, my mum and dad are still together. I come from a really happy home. You know, I didn't struggle growing up. I had a really, really lovely family. My mum and dad, they kind of struggled a bit more growing up. You know, my dad came from Salford. My mum lived in Warrington. I'm originally born in Warrington too myself. That's where I grew up. And then I moved to Prescott at the age of 14. But yeah, they kind of created a life for me and my sister that they didn't necessarily have. So yeah, we were really fortunate.
I suppose your first most defining moment, which was being the captain of the Great British water polo team, women's water polo team. How many years did you train for to get that far?
I originally started off as a competitive swimmer. When I was literally about this big. I got I did a trial in Warrington, Warriors of Warrington, the swim club was. I trialed for that. I must have been literally like, I was so young. kind of straight out of swimming lessons, they kind of scout you and send you a letter if they think that you're kind of capable of, you know, being a good swimmer and stuff. And I got this letter through and I went to the trial. Obviously got into Warriors of Warrington. By the age of, I think about 11 or 12, I'd kind of competed in everything I possibly could for my age group. I was up and down the country every single weekend, which comes back into play with my mum and dad being so supportive, you know, so loving. And they drove me and my sister everywhere because we were both competitive swimmers and we did all sorts of competitions. By the age of like 11 or 12, I got bored of it. I was constantly competing against myself. You know, you're constantly up against your own times. And, you know, I'd moved up all these different squads. I was in a really good squad. I just kind of thought, like, what now? It was actually our cousin, James, who suggested to us, because we were both friendly. My sister quit, and then a couple of months later, I was a bit like, do you know what? This isn't for me anymore either. Like, I don't want to compete against myself anymore, but I am a water baby. We're both water babies. So my cousin James, he said to us, you know, why don't you try water polo? Because he played water polo at the time and we both had no idea what that was. So we went down to our local Warrington water polo team and started training for that. And because we could both swim, that was half the battle. So yeah, that's literally how it started, was local Warrington water polo team. Then we moved on to Liverpool. Then I started playing for North West. I think I made the England squad by about the age of 14, maybe. And then it went on from the England squad. Obviously, I captained England for a bit, and then got in the GB squad, captain GB. Yeah, and that was until the age of 17, coming up to 18.
Incredible. So I suppose water polo is a bit of a niche sport, isn't it?
Really niche, yeah.
So I suppose because I don't even know how it's played, and I suppose some of the listeners might be a bit confused, maybe.
Yeah.
So I suppose, could you give us some insight? How hard did you have to train?
Oh, I was training 6-7 times a week, occasionally twice a day. You know, you do a pool session and a gym session. It was intense because of the level that I played at. So if I was to continue to play just for Liverpool, our training was twice a week. Because obviously at GB level, I was training more 6-7 times a week. It was on land, it was in the pool. It was definitely intense.
So what was the most valuable takeaway that you had from, you know, that season of your life?
I think a lot of where I am now has to do with that discipline I had growing up of, when you play sport, it's just like eating your dinner. You don't think about the fact of oh, shall I go to training today or shall I do it? It's just in your nature. You do it. Whether you want to or you don't, you go to training because you're on GB. You need to upkeep this level of fitness, this level of strength. You know, if you don't, you'll get dropped. You can't slack off. You can't have weeks off training. You can't do anything like that. So yeah, I definitely think the discipline to get to that level will serve me for life.
That's very interesting, and I suppose it's interesting to see how that stays with you.
Yeah, definitely.
So what would you encourage more young people to take up sports and competition maybe?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's good to have a hobby. I think it's good to have something, even if, you know, it doesn't necessarily have to be something as competitive as what I did. It could be your local football team, for example. Train every week and do that with your local football team. It could be something like crocheting. You know, it could be just something that you can focus on and you can commit to every single week and you don't give that up. So you have to find something you enjoy, something you're passionate about and something that you don't want to give up. And yeah, I do think it's got a lot to account for. If you enjoy sport, I'd find a sport. You know, if you don't enjoy sport, you know, there's other things that you can do, but find a hobby and stick with it and see how far you can go with it, because why not?
Yeah. Now, an important thing that I wanted to mention was I watched a podcast, I think it was Andrew Huberman, an episode, and he was talking about there's a part of your brain that essentially increases in size when you do things that you don't like to do. And that is your sort of discipline part of your brain.
Yeah. So,
you know, when you started training at a young age, did you enjoy it?
Yeah, I loved it. So I always look back and I think it's wild because at primary school, I was already training at such a high level that I was getting up before school and going swim training. That was so it literally at primary school, I was already training 5 times a week doing swimming sessions. And I remember every Tuesday morning, our session was 5:30 till 7 in the morning. It was an hour and a half and it was before primary school. Yes. And I look back and I'm like, that's wild. But I wouldn't have done it if I didn't love it. Do you know what I mean? So most of my sessions were evening sessions, obviously, but a Tuesday morning and a Saturday morning was at ridiculous times where no kid really wants to be getting up at that time unless you actually love what you're doing. And me and my sister, we loved it, and we got up, and we didn't even think twice about it. When our alarms went off, we literally sprung out of bed and, you know, went and had our breakfast at like 4:30 in the morning and would get taken to training it, and we just didn't think any differently.
Nice. I think we all need something like that. Especially, I think lots of people struggle sometimes to even get out of bed.
Yeah,
right.
Definitely. You need something that drives you. You need something to focus on that you want to get out of bed for.
So, the end of that season of your life.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about that?
Okay, so at the age of 17, September 2019, I competed in my European Championships, which is, you know, that was so incredible. We flew over to Volos in Greece, spent the week out there competing. At this point, I'd already done my EU Nations. I'd done EU Nations twice, actually. Then I'd done my Europeans. And then as I come home from my Europeans, I was like, you know, what's next? Because I'd literally competed again in everything I could for my age group of that GB squad. So I thought, right, well, I'll trial for the GB squad, the older age group above me. So I tried for that team. I got onto that team, and then I thought, okay, well, now I need to really prove myself. I need to really train even harder than I've ever trained, because I'm now the youngest on the squad, or one of the youngest on the squad, and I need to prove myself even more to my coaches. So yeah, as we came out of September, obviously finishing off that year and coming into 2020, I was literally at the peak of my training. I was the peak of my fitness, to the point where I did have a lot of comments from family, from other people saying, Casey, like, are you doing too much? Are you training a little bit too hard? Like, don't do too much, you're going to get injured, kind of thing. And I thought, there's no such thing as training too much. Genuinely, that was my mindset, was there's no such thing. I can only get fitter. Then we came into lockdown in like the March, April time, didn't we, of 2020? Pool shut, gym shut, the world shut down. My college stopped. We got handed out A-levels. And in that April time, I was, well, from going into lockdown, RGB coaches said, keep your fitness. And at this point, I hadn't trained this hard for this many months to lose my fitness by having a month off in lockdown. Do you know what I mean? It was without a question that we had to continue training at home. I was suffering from injury at that point. I had my shins strapped up most days. I was suffering really badly from shin splints. But again, like I said, like, it wasn't an option for me to lose my fitness. So I'd get up every morning, I'd do 2 hours of HIIT workouts. I'd go downstairs, I'd do an hour of boxer skipping. I was going on the odd run, and my shins were knackered, but I completely ignored it, because I was like, it's only going to be for a few weeks. It's only going to be, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, we'll be back in no time. We had pressure from our, obviously, coaches saying, we're going away on a camp soon. We're working towards Europeans. And when I tell you, I was intent on making the next European squad. I was going to that Europeans. That was literally my sole goal in mind, was that European squad. I woke up one morning in April and I couldn't walk. I got out of bed. I couldn't put pressure on my feet. I couldn't put, weight on my legs. Literally overnight, I was like, oh, I'm in agony. Like, I've taken it too far here. Obviously, I had to go to the doctors, got prescribed numbing cream for my legs, everything like that. I was waiting on scans. I had scans done. Turns out that my shin splints turned into stress fractures down both on my legs. I then spent the next 3 months in a wheelchair, because it was both my legs that I did in. I couldn't walk properly. I was on crutches getting myself to the toilet. I was on a wheelchair every time I left the house. And obviously this was at a stage where you weren't even barely allowed to leave the house. This was full lockdown. You couldn't see family, you couldn't see friends. College stopped, my job stopped.
I can't imagine a worse time for that to happen.
Literally, I couldn't, you don't even have anyone there other than your immediate family who you live with.
Yeah.
You can't even see your friends, you can't do anything. You're just stuck in your own state of mind. The only thing you're allowed to do at this time was go for an hour's walk every day. And I know I couldn't do that either. So yeah, that was kind of where it all ended with water polo. I knew I'd done that much damage. I couldn't come back. I certainly couldn't heal in time for Europeans, let alone come back to the sport at all.
So that must have been earth-shattering, almost.
Yeah.
I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but that's your life direction.
Yeah.
That's now veered off course
Yeah, definitely. I think water polo was my life at that stage of time. I was a lifeguard. Yeah, I went to college. Yeah, my sole focus was that GB squad. That was my purpose at that time. I always knew I'd go on to other things when I was, later on in life, and I'd do, I'd achieve more than just that. But at that moment in time, that was my everything.
So as soon as you were deprived of your purpose, how did you feel?
I think it's safe to say I spiraled. It was probably the worst time of my life at that point. Yeah, it was hard.
So how did you pull yourself back from the brink, as it were?
Don't get me wrong, I'm not going to turn around and tell you I jumped out of bed the next day and, I thought, I'm just going to crack on, everything's going to be fine. I didn't. I literally wallowed in my own self-pity for probably a good month, kind of grieving what I knew couldn't be anymore. And then after that, my dad come down to me one day and was like, Katie, you need to sort yourself out. If you carry on like this, your mental state is going to become a problem. And I did think to myself, I was like, yeah, you're right. Because I think my family know that sometimes you can't come and, kind of mollycoddle me and be like, oh, this is really bad and this is the worst thing and blah, blah, blah. Sometimes someone just needs to give my head a quick wobble and say, this isn't the end. You're 18 years old. It's not the end of your life. It was never going to be the be all and end all. You've had something taken off you a bit quicker than what was expected, but that's also okay. Yeah. It's not the end. And I thought, you know what? My dad's right. I'm too young to wake up unhappy. I'm 18 years old. I've got my whole life ahead of me. Water polo was never going to be my entire career. It was just what meant the most at that moment. And I thought, yeah, he's right. I need to sort this out. And over the next couple of days, I thought, do you know what? I've got this furlough pay coming in. I've got all this time on my hands. We're in lockdown. No one's doing anything. The world's shut down. I thought, I'm going to start a business. At that stage, I didn't know what business that would be. Literally was scrolling on my phone. A few beauty ads popped up. I thought, that's it. Never once in my life have I been like, oh, I'm going to be a beautician. I'm going to open a beauty business. The thought never even crossed my mind. But I just had these few ads pop up on my phone. And I thought, yeah, that'll do me. That's what I'm going to do. And I come downstairs, said, Mum, Dad, I've just booked onto 2 beauty courses. And they were like, great, well done. That's amazing. I think they were just pleased for me to kind of do anything other than nothing. Do you know what I mean? Rather than keep sitting there and feeling so awful, they were just pleased that I had an alternative focus. And then that was it then. With the beauty courses, it was one after the other.
I see. So obviously then your parents played an integral part in you bouncing back.
Yeah.
But what would you say to people who don't have that support network? What would you say to the listener right now who is sad or have lost their purpose, lost their way?
I think that everything, I know this sounds really cliche and I know everyone says it, but as someone who's been through it, what's meant to be won't pass you by. And I think everything happens for a reason in your life. Even when you can't see it at the time, you will look back on this period a couple of months later and go, I know why that happened to me. I understand and it's okay. And I think now, obviously since all this has happened, I look back and I'm grateful that I ended up in a wheelchair because I think that completely changed the direction of my life. And I believe the path I'm on now is the one I'm supposed to be on.
So it was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah, definitely. I know don't get me wrong, it'll still upset me. It'll, but I think that's okay. It's just how, you grieve. For example, this is probably not the best example, but if someone passes away, you grieve them and you'll never stop grieving them. You just learn to live without them. And it's kind of like that in a sense of I lost the sport. I will forever have that part of me that's, sad. I loved it so much, but you also learn to move on.
I see. So bring us now to your state of mind, how you felt launching what was your first business.
Yeah.
How did you feel?
Do you know what? It was really good because I actually made that business launch on the day that beauty salons were first allowed to launch back in the August time, which that was my goal in mind. So obviously I'd spent all these months training. I got trained loads of treatments and, different beauty qualifications. And my goal was to open on the day that salons were allowed to reopen after being in lockdown for the last, like, I don't know, 6-7 months, however long it was, because I thought there's going to be that much excess demand for beauty treatments. You've got no choice but to come to me. So I put on my introductory prices, and yeah, it was like, even just having your first client book in and message it, like, it's incredible feeling.
So what I'm pulling out from there is that there is a great importance on setting meaningful deadlines and goals.
Yeah, definitely. A goal without a timeline is just like a dream. It's not really, if you don't put a timeline on it, you won't reach it because you've got no drive to do things to help you get there.
So how did you feel launching this first venture where you were all worried?
I wouldn't say I was worried because I still had other jobs on the side, and I knew that, like, I think there's a really common misconception that if you launch a business, like, that's it, you have to go all in and, like, devote all your time to it. I was still in education. I still had part-time jobs. I had 0-hour contracts, so I could say yes or no to shifts. I could kind of pick up as many or little hours as I wanted alongside growing the business. And I feel like that suited me so much because there was no massive pressure on me to be like, you've got to be successful overnight. You know, you can only try your best, and businesses don't grow overnight. So yeah, I think having other jobs and having obviously other things. I was still in education at the time as well. I just started uni. So yeah.
So you were balancing your first venture, which I'm sure you were very passionate about.
Yeah.
University, which takes a lot of resources and energy.
Yes.
And side jobs as well.
Yeah, I had quite a few jobs. I think at one stage I had 3 part-time jobs, the beauty business growing on the side, and obviously my university degree, which was online because it was COVID still. And I think the first year of my degree was online, really. So I kind of made the most of that. I'm not saying that's what you should do. I'm not encouraging anyone to, kind of go down that route. But I just decided that I knew, especially in my first year, I could do a lot of uni, which was online, in my own time. So I kind of smashed the work instead, 60-hour weeks and things like that, which isn't sustainable. And I knew it wasn't sustainable, but I also had other goals in mind, and I knew I wanted to get my savings up.
So I suppose the question following that is, what skill was the most useful for balancing all of those different important things?
Definitely time management. Obviously, I couldn't do like 5 things at once without having time management, and it was just being really efficient with that time management. I'd probably say that was the main one.
And you're still running that beautification business today?
Yeah, full time in it.
So how long did it take to see success? And then you really like laid back and went, this is working, I'm going to keep doing it.
Well, I'd say that moment, even though it probably came earlier than this, I really felt it when I left uni and knew I didn't need to get a job. So because I'd grown this business alongside uni and grafted it alongside uni for the 3 years of my degree, I was in a position where I was so comfortable when I left uni, I didn't need to go out and look for employment. And I think that's really fortunate because obviously it's so competitive out there now. So to be able to leave uni and already have a full-time business running, like, that was the moment where I kind of sat back and was like, do you know what? Yeah, like this was the best thing I've ever done. Like this was the right decision. Although obviously I seen success much earlier than 3 years, it kind of hit me then because obviously uni was still taking up so much time out of the salon where I couldn't be in the salon. But I could really open my hours up after I left uni, and to open your hours up and remain fully booked was when I kind of realised. I was like, yeah.
So you set up the salon at 18?
Yes.
Tell me, what did you do after that?
By the age of 19, in fact. So when I was 17, I set a goal that I wanted to buy my first property before the age of 20. I did think this was slightly impossible when COVID came around. The property market was everywhere. When I tell you, I spent months sweet talking to estate agents, literally being like, help me out, I need an investment property, like, because they were all going for 20 grand over asking, which if you're an investor, your numbers don't stack when property's going at 20 grand over asking. So I'd literally spent months, speaking to loads of agents being like, I need a property, I want to get on the property ladder, I need an investment, blah, blah, blah. And at this time, obviously, it's when I was doing like 60-hour weeks. I had 3 jobs, I had the business, uni was online. I was making the most of getting my savings up through COVID. And my property that I ended up getting completed 2 days before my 20th birthday. So literally made it just in time at the age of 19. Yeah, that was definitely an incredible feeling.
No doubt, I'm sure lots of people who are 18 going on 19 or 19, even just around that age bracket, would love to be in that position. But what's one, word of advice that you would give to that person who wants to like branch out into property?
I'd say try and do it as young as you can, if you can. Like work them extra hours, pick up them extra jobs if you feel like you can manage that alongside uni. Because you can do things for short periods of time. I've not worked 60-hour weeks for the last 4 or 5 years. I've certainly not. But I worked it when I felt as though I could take that on in order to build my savings, in order to make that happen. And I also think like kind of having multiple revenue streams is so important when you're an entrepreneur, because business isn't always stable.
And you did that through not side hustles, but active hustles, didn't you?
Yeah. Full-time hustles.
Hustles collectively, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. So that's one way to go about it. I think there's definitely a bit of a hustle culture in the online sphere where it's like, young people think that it's normal to have 5 side businesses.
Yeah.
And then they get so caught up in that they don't even set up anything.
Yeah, no, I think that's a massive thing at the minute. I think like I certainly don't have a 5 till 9 before my work day starts, because that's not my most productive hours of the day, and that's okay. And just I think if that works for you, fantastic, you crack on, but also don't push that onto other people of like, you're only going to be successful if you get up and do an ice bath at 4 a.m. and this, that, and the other, and not, have 100 grams of protein for your breakfast and whatever else. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it works for you, great. But if it doesn't, that's also absolutely fine.
By the age of 19, you had set up a beautician business, a storefront. You had set up a investment property business and had your own properties as well in your possession. What did you do after that?
So after that, so last year at the age of 21, I became the co-director of a CIC, Inspiring Minds group, with 2 other wonderful women, and we helped to teach kids financial education. So we went to City of Liverpool College. We delivered a 6-week program on financial education in terms of like your credit score, why is that important, how do you improve it, what makes it negative, what happens when you buy stuff on Klarna and you don't pay it off at 18 years old, and how does that impact your future, and budgeting, planning for your future, like all the things, even like how to read a pay slip. We all start employment at the age of maybe like 16. You get these slips of paper through. What do they mean? Why have you taken money off me? People don't understand them, and I think that's just something that we never really taught. So we've kind of put this program together to help kids understand finance better. And then going on from there, well, kind of at the same time, I was setting up Young Entrepreneurs Club. It was kind of in the works. I've just not announced it yet. So alongside that, Young Entrepreneurs Club was born, which is obviously it's like a business support hub for 18 to 35-year-old young people in business. We host monthly social, really informal, really chilled networking events. You don't even have to be a business owner to attend. You could be an aspiring business owner. You could have been in business for 10 years. You could just have a slight inkling that business is something you might want to do at some point. Everyone is welcome at our events. And we've been running them in Manchester. We've been running them in Liverpool, running them every month since June. And in November, we just launched Manchester as well.
Excellent. I mean, I've been to one. I'm sorry that I missed the last one in Liverpool.
Oh, it's okay.
I'll be sure to come to the next one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really good. I think it's important for young people to network and get to know in an informal way, not in a business. I mean, it is networky, but it isn't sales pitchy.
And you don't have to have a certain amount of knowledge to be in the room. I can't stress that enough, because I feel like I've been networking since the age of 18, and I've had probably every conversation you could imagine with different business people. So many people are so supportive. They want to see a young girl do well in business. And I've got a lot out of networking. I've had opportunities. I've had some great stuff. And then I've also had a small handful of, negativity, people looking down on me, speaking down on me, wondering why I'm in the room. They don't think I deserve to be there, or they don't think I've got enough knowledge to be in the room just from looking at me. And then I've had people before today, I'll speak to them for 5 minutes and they go, oh, you actually know what you're talking about. And I'm like, well, yeah, I wouldn't set up a business in something I didn't. But, you kind of have these small handful of negative experiences. And I always thought to myself, like, if I wasn't a confident person, if I didn't really truly believe in what I was doing, some of them conversations could have put me off. They could have made me lose confidence. Like, am I too young? Am I not good enough? And I didn't want other young entrepreneurs kind of experiencing that. So I thought, I'm going to set up like just a really safe, informal, young community where you can build your networking skills. So it's not too formal, it's not scary, but you can build them skills so you can walk into other rooms with confidence and be like, my name is Katie and I can take up a space in this room.
So you've got meetups in Liverpool, you've got them in Manchester.
Yeah.
There's a listener from London. What should they do?
Well, we are looking to expand very quickly.
Okay, but hold that thought.
Okay.
Right now, what do you think they could do to help build their skills or gain confidence?
I'd go to networking events. I'd put yourself out there. I think, yeah, they can be daunting. You might find that really scary, walking into a room full of people you don't know. But at the same time, exposure therapy is the only thing that's going to help you get out your comfort zone and speak and learn how to communicate.
Yeah.
I always think this, like, you have to do what you're scared of to get over being scared. It is that exposure therapy of, like, every time you walk into a room, into a networking event, you will find it easier. Every time you speak up and have to speak for 60 seconds about who you are and what you do, it will get easier. So put yourself out there, because do you know what? The amount of people who will want to help you as a young entrepreneur, you'll be amazed.
I'm sure of it. And I know I've experienced that myself. The world is a lot more supportive than it seems.
Yeah.
And actually a lot more supportive to young people. When you go, particularly young people, when you go beyond the places that young people are typically in.
Yes. They want to know why you're in the room. People, you don't even have to worry about going over to people. People will gravitate to you. They want to know why you're there. They want to know what you're doing. They want to know how they can help you. And yes, you will have this really small handful of negative experiences. People look down on you, speak down to you, they might patronise you. That's okay. I think one of the most important lessons that I learned very early on is not everyone in life is going to be your friend, and not everyone in life is going to like you, and not everyone in life is going to be a client, and that's okay. As long as you know you're a good person and you believe in what you're doing, you don't need to convince other people that you're good at what you do. You don't need to go out your way to, convince people who don't believe in supporting you. Like, that's okay if they don't want to.
That goes back to something that I was thinking about the other day. It's like, you don't react to the world reacts to you.
Yeah,
I love that. So you should be in of yourself, confident, self-aware, and know what you're about and what you're going to do. And if people want to be funny or anything like that, just let them. And you just push forward. Yeah. And then eventually they'll change. Yeah. You don't change.
You don't need to change. I think that's the thing, is like, we're in a world where it's becoming normality to blend in. Everyone wants to blend in and kind of slip under the radar. Like, it's okay to do things differently. It's okay to be different. I did this with my first business with, I was looking for a logo for ages. I was like, what can I do? I want to be different. I want to, do something out of the ordinary. My logo is a sunflower. I've got so much yellow in my salon. Name a yellow salon.
I mean, I don't go to many salons, but...
but it doesn't... There's not many out there. My salon is full of sunflowers and it's yellow, and it's the first thing people notice, and it's the first thing they say to me is, what a gorgeous room. I love sunflowers. I love the colour yellow, and the way that makes them feel. And I think, that's so lovely. Make that impression on people. Be different. It's okay to be different. It's okay to be who you want to be. You don't feel like you need to blend in this world.
Why not? Why blend in? There's really no need to. You're right there. So I imagine right now there's a listener who, they're 18 and suppose they feel like they haven't entrepreneurial spirit in them,
Yeah.
what would you say to them?
Run with it. Find something that you enjoy, find your passion. And I think it's also okay to not have an end in mind, in a sense of, I didn't set up a beauty business. I didn't become a beautician to do that for the rest of my life. I knew I wanted to be a business owner. I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. What them businesses may look like, I didn't know. I started something to learn the foundations of business. I'm fortunate that obviously my business was really successful and it's still going now and I still enjoy it. However, it's still not my end career, if that makes sense. You don't always have to start with the end in mind, because I think a lot of people get too caught up and never start anything because they're like, oh, but, do I want to do that for the rest of my life? Or what if I get, what if I don't enjoy it? What if I move on? Do something different, try something new. I started the beauty business I never had the expectation it would take off. I just thought, you know what? I'm going to start a business. I've always known and wanted to be a business owner. Literally, first ad that came on my phone, thought, yeah, sound, I'm doing it. That's it. That's me sorted. Did it. And I thought, any lessons I learn along the way, great. I can apply that to my next business when I work out what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Hence why I've set up more.
Yeah.
So if you're 18 and you think, I want to do something, just start. Start something, learn lessons. You don't need to stick with it for the next 60 years.
And what you're saying really is that people should find out what they don't want from life.
Yeah, definitely.
And then follow their passion.
Yeah. There's a reason I had so many jobs before I went completely self-employed. I was testing, what do I like, what don't I like? And even all that has translated to my businesses. From being a barmaid at 17, I knew I loved socializing I knew I loved the skill of communication. I knew I loved that social side to the job. Now I'm growing a community where I do nothing but speak to everyone. Do you know what I mean? You find out through life all the things you do and don't like doing, and that will translate.
What has been your favorite venture so far?
I feel that's a really, really difficult question, because obviously the beauty business is my baby. That is the first business, and I never expected it to be where it is today, and I'm just so grateful for it. I'm at the position where it runs itself. I don't have to actively promote myself anymore. I don't have to actively market or anything like that, because I've got that many regular clients. That business is I'm at the stage where it's running itself, and I think that's always my baby. But at the same time, the happiness that launching Young Entrepreneurs Club has given me is incredible. The fact that I'm bringing together so many young people in one room who can support each other, who can connect with each other, and if nothing else, make friends, because I think business can be really lonely. Entrepreneurship can be so lonely, but it doesn't have to be lonely. And I'm giving people that option to make that a less lonely venture. That is my mission. It is to make entrepreneurship a less lonely venture for young people, because sometimes I think, especially when you're in your 20s and things like that, life's so confusing. All your friends are taking different routes. And for me, for example, I'm the only girl in our group who's running a business. None of my friends are running businesses. I love and adore my girls. They're the most supportive girls ever. I'm so fortunate. None of them are running businesses, so they can't always understand.
So it's hard to connect and talk about problems.
Yeah, definitely. I can't go to them and say, oh, girls, this and this is going wrong in my business, because they're not going to know the answers, and that's okay.
I suppose
I don't expect them to.
True, but I suppose then, as a young person, first-time entrepreneur maybe, and your circle just isn't like that. You might feel like you're up against the world almost.
Yeah, you feel like you're on your own. You feel like you don't know where to turn for help. You don't know who to ask. I'm really fortunate that essentially my dad is my mentor. He was a businessman, and I pick his brains. I've picked his brains every day for I don't know how many years, since I was young. And I've got someone to be my sounding board. Not everyone is that fortunate. Not everyone's got a family or friends who they can ask questions to. So I think to create that community and put everyone in a room, and the feedback I get from it of I've really needed that today, or, I've had some really good conversations, or people meeting aside from the events and going for coffees and helping each other out. And I just think that's incredible.
I mean, that's an interesting point that you said your father was your mentor. How important do you think mentorship is?
I think it's really important, because the best thing about being self-employed or an entrepreneur is you've got no one to answer to. The worst thing about being self-employed or an entrepreneur is you've got no one to answer to. You need someone sometimes to help hold you accountable. So like sometimes my dad like, Katie, have you done this? Have you done this yet? Have you done this yet? Because he knows I've got a job that I need to do and that I'm either procrastinating or I'm putting it off. And sometimes I'll just nudge me and be like, have you got that done yet? And I'm like, no. And now that he's pressed me and asked me, I'm like, God, I need to get that done now. Yeah. And it's the little bits of advice. It's having someone to go back and forth with and bounce opinions off. Because with the majority of entrepreneurs, and certainly with me, I've got minimum 50 tabs open in my head at all times. It's busy. And I think sometimes you need people to bounce ideas off and tell you, do you reckon that's going to work? Do you reckon that's not going to work? Or you need other people's spin on ideas. If you're having a problem, sometimes your tunnel vision, you can't see the solution. You need someone else just to be like, Katie, it's just this. And I'm like, yeah, of course it is. Like, why didn't I think of that? I think it doesn't matter who that mentor is or how they show up. It could be your uncle, it could be your cousin, it could be your dad, it could be a friend, it could be someone who you've met at a networking event who wants to help you. A lot of people you'll come across in life will want to help you. And I think having someone there, that's been massive for me. I don't think I would be where I am today without that help.
Yeah, you can't understand how important that mentorship was from your dad. But definitely. I suppose then listeners should seek out mentors.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there's this association that you have to pay for mentorship. But I think there's a lot of people in this world who would give their time to a young entrepreneur. They're at a stage in their career where they're happy with what they've achieved, they're happy with what they're doing, they might have a spare few hours on the side. And it could be 1 or 2 hours a month. And they're willing to give that time to help someone if you've not got someone in the family. Like, go to networking events, you'll find people. But yeah, I think it's so valuable.
Very valuable. How important have hobbies been for you?
I think especially since obviously not being able to do sport anymore, because a year after I did my shins in, I ended up back on crutches from another injury, which was from water polo, but kind of like a wear and tear. It took a while for it to kind of, sometimes injuries come out a little bit later after you've stopped. And I tore cartilage in my hip. I needed surgery to fix. So I got to the stage where I was meeting with the surgeon, and then he said, Katie, I'm not doing surgery on you. And I was like, what do you mean? I've been promised I'm getting fixed this whole time. I've been told, it's only small surgery, blah, blah, blah. He said, no, I'm going to have to dislocate your hip to trim the cartilage to put your hip back together. He was like, you're 19 years old. I'm not doing this to you. You're going to have trouble for life, basically. If I dislocate your hip, as we're going to have problems later on in life. So he was like, you need to wait to heal. So the next 2 years, I still had a lot of trouble with my hips on top of the trouble with my legs. So any form of sport was now difficult. Like even going to the gym was my life. I loved going to the gym. Even that was like now becoming a chore. It was something that I struggled with because I was in pain. I was constantly having to adapt to workouts. And up until last year, I did actually manage to get back into the gym. I'd adapted on my workouts. I was back going 5 times a week. And then I started suffering. It was probably about 18 months ago now. I started suffering some heart problems. Currently under investigation still, and exercise is kind of not really something I can do a lot of at the minute. And that's really strange as someone who's exercised, and exercise played a massive part in my life, and it's kind of just not something that I can do at the minute. So I had to find other hobbies that kind of satisfied that need to do something aside from business. When I left uni, I did actually bring down my mum's sewing machine out the loft and teach myself how to sew, because I've always loved fashion. Since I was young, I've always loved fashion, and I've always wanted to learn how to sew. So I thought, great, I'll start with that, because obviously this was still a stage where I was struggling with the gym and stuff. So I started with fashion. I was making my own dresses, I was making my own outfits. That was going really well. And then this last year, maybe not even a year, I decided I wanted to start crochet as well. And me and my mum found a crochet class, and now every Thursday we go to crochet class together, and that is my 2 hours of mindfulness every single week. So yeah, I still struggle with exercise. It's again something that I can't currently do. I am trying Pilates a bit at the minute, because that's very much sat and lay down exercising, which my cardiologist said is like safe to do. I'm okay to do that, but it's not like going to the gym 5 times a week, lifting weights and doing everything that I was doing. So it's completely different. But now I've found other hobbies where I enjoy them just as much. I love sewing, I love crochet, and I love spending time with my mum doing that.
I think your spirit, Katie, it's like a spanner can get thrown in the works anywhere, and then you're just adapt.
Yeah, I think you have to be, because I think it's so, the easy option is to sit and feel sorry for myself and be like, oh, well, do you know what? I've had all these health issues. I've got more health issues. I've got this going on. I've got that going on. But like, the only person who's going to suffer is me. So instead, it's like, okay, I can't do that anymore. I can't do sport. Now I can't really exercise. What can I do? I'll find other things I enjoy. Now, yeah, I might look like a little nan, but I will sit and crochet with my mum. You know, I enjoy that. I've just made a handbag recently and it's the cutest thing ever.
You have to show us a picture of that.
I will do.
Very cool, very cool. So, balancing 4 ventures, plus personal life, family life, etc. Do you have any tips for time management and motivation specifically?
Time management is definitely something I'm still working on. I think because I'm so used to being so busy, like my lifestyle from being young, like being in primary school, training 5 times a week alongside school, then going through college and, you know, I was captain of GB, I was training 7 times a week still, and I was doing all this. Like, I'm used to having not much free time. Like, it was the weirdest thing ever to me when I ended up in a wheelchair and I was like, what do I do with all this free time? Like, it stressed me out that I had free time, so I just so wasn't used to that. So I am someone who enjoys being busy. I like having a lot going on. I like having different things to do every day. But I also understand that it's important to have downtime so that you don't burn out. And, you know, it's important not to work ridiculous hours every single day and to take days off and to do mindful things, which is why, like, that 2 hours of crochet with my mum is in my diary every single week. It's non-negotiable. I know every single week without fail I will have that 2 hours of mindfulness where there's nothing else in my brain because I'm having to focus on what I'm doing, which is the crochet. So I think it's like you need to find something that, if you can't, like for me, watching telly doesn't block out the noise in my brain. I'm still thinking. I had to find something that kind of stopped me thinking about my businesses, something that stopped the thoughts, because it actually required me to think on what I was doing.
On focus.
And focus, but something that was relaxing and mindful still, but still required enough focus for me to stop any other thoughts and tabs being open. So I'd say that's one way to manage your time, is like find something that you enjoy, find something that keeps your mind busy where you can't focus on anything else and you can just be mindful, whether that's yoga, whether that's meditation, whether that's crochet, whether that's football, rugby, sport, just something that you kind of look forward to every week, and that's a bit of you time. So even if you're working a lot of hours, even if you're really busy, like, find that something. But in terms of time management, I think there's some really like good skills and things that are out there. There's loads of different methods. Something that I like, if I have, for example, a day off the salon and I know I've got loads of admin to do and I've got loads of different things, I swear by lists. Lists honestly save my life. If it's not on my list, it's not getting done. That is literally it. So my notes page in my apps, I've got probably about 4,000 of them. And it's just notes of like different to-do lists. I need to do this, I need to do that. I list them all down. But if I want to be really productive, I time block. So I'll put 9 a.m, I put a task, 10 a.m, a task, 11 a.m. And I try and be really careful and mindful of how long things are going to take me and kind of place them in my diary, because sometimes if you don't have a plan, nothing gets done. It's so easy, especially when you're self-employed, to kind of like procrastinate on things. Whereas sometimes if you've got it written out, that can help you with time management.
Interesting.
And you don't require equipment. It's literally just the notes page on your app or a piece of paper, write it down.
Well, I think you're very well positioned to talk about time management and things of that nature. Yeah, but you know, as with all things and all people, most people anyway, everything's a learning experience.
Yeah, still works for you, don't you?
Yeah, of course. Some of that I'd like to explore. What was or has been the biggest mistake you've made, maybe in business?
Do you know what? I don't think nothing I've ever done I've kind of classed as a mistake, because I don't believe in the concept. Obviously, you know, you can make mistakes, but are they mistakes or are they learning curves? Like, I always reframe everything. Right. So I probably couldn't even name to you like one massive mistake, I guess, because I reframe things as like, well, I'll just do it differently. I'll try a new method. I'll do this. But if I was to name one thing which I wish I knew back then, which maybe I would have done differently, it would be to realize how valuable your time is and that your time has a value. I think sometimes when you're starting off and you want to get business and you want to do things, you give away so much time for free, which is okay when there's opportunity involved. But sometimes it's okay to say no when something doesn't serve you or you don't feel like it's valuable. I think it's so easy to kind of get sucked up into saying like yes, yes, yes to everything. Like I know at the start, when I was 18 going to networking events, there'd be people who'd say to me, oh, Katie, I've got loads of great connections for you. We need to go for a coffee and we need to do this and whatever. And I'd think, oh my God, amazing. Like I never even pressed or said like, oh, like what kind of connections may they be? Or like, you know, what's the motive of the coffee? You know, like I never really pressed. And then I'd maybe drive an hour because they'd say, oh, come to my office in Manchester. It was never like meet me halfway or, you know, and it always felt like I just said yes and that was fine. I didn't necessarily negotiate equal terms in a sense. So I'd travel, say, an hour into Manchester for a meeting where it would be someone saying, here's everything you need to know about my services and that you should buy from me. And I'm like, hang on, that was never discussed. Like I thought, oh, you know, I thought you were going to help me. I thought there's mutual benefit, but it was just them selling me my service. And that was because I didn't do my due diligence of who I was meeting and what their like motivation for meeting was. So I think if you're ever unsure, if somebody says to you, because you'll get a lot of messages in business, should we go for a coffee? Should we go for a coffee? Let's have a meeting. Let's go for coffee. Absolutely go for it. But if you feel as though you're not sure why you're going for that coffee, ask the question. Or the other thing you can do is pick up the phone. 10 minutes of your time on the phone is then no longer a wasted trip. So like what I should have done was give them a call first and say, oh, just like wanted to find out a bit more info about who you are, what you do, and, you know, like why you want to meet for a coffee kind of thing. There's ways of wording things where you can kind of get that information out of them and see if that's worth your while with your trip. And that even though you're younger, you don't have to like bend over backwards to please somebody else. Everything can still be mutually beneficial. So like you don't need to always travel to them. You can meet halfway and you can ask for that and say, actually, it would be more convenient if we could meet halfway. And if somebody's not willing to do that, then maybe they're not the right connection for you.
Yeah, I mean, you touched upon many things, including knowing your own worth, right?
Yeah,
that's very important.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, appreciating your own time.
Yeah.
I suppose being more business smart as opposed to street smart, business smart.
Business smart,
yeah,
definitely.
And not allowing yourself to be time exploited.
Yeah.
Katie, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. I'm sure the listeners and the viewers have found an immense amount of value in what you've had to say today. I'm sure many people will be watching this back multiple times over to try and download everything. So yeah, thank you so much for being here today, and hopefully we'll see you back on the podcast to explore further some of the different avenues of your life. But thank you anyway.
Oh, I would absolutely love to come back on at a later date. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure joining you.
Thank you.